What's up, everyone, and welcome back for another episode of the QB Factory Reboot brought to you by SP Nation and Bleeding Green Nation. We're switching things up a little bit this week, recording on a marvelous Monday. It is April 18th to be exact. And you guys know that here at BGN Draft, season is just super, super special to us. So we want to continue to dish out the quality content. And so we're bringing on another special guest this week to talk about all things birds. It's draft season. You guys know the drill, but I'm your host, Raichele Privette. I am joined by my amazing co-host, the one and only Mark Schofield. And we're also joined by a very, very, very special guest. His name is Thomas Mott. A lot of you guys might be familiar with him. He is on YouTube. He's the Eagles host for Chat Sports. And you guys can follow him at Real Thomas Mott. So what's up, Thomas? What's up, Mark? How are you guys both doing on this Monday afternoon?
I'm doing great. I mean, listen, we're like less than 2 weeks from the draft, so it's nuts right now, but it's fun to start talking about it.
Oh, yeah.
It is fun to start talking about it. It's nice that it is just like you said, Thomas, less than 2 weeks away. And there's also that light at the end of the tunnel when it's like the draft will be in the rearview mirror. We can maybe sleep for a week or two.
Right.
Looking forward to that as well.
I'm excited for that. And before we even get into the draft coverage, it's only right. We're called the QB Factory Reboot, so we talk quarterback. So we want to know, what are your thoughts based off of Jalen Hurts' season, this past season? What are your thoughts on him, and maybe what are your expectations for him going into this season?
I think I get this question on my YouTube channel more than any other question. Everybody wants to know, Thomas, are you pro Jalen Hurts or anti Jalen Hurts? And I'll be honest, guys, I'm a huge Hurts fan. I think, and it's not because I think that Hurts is like spectacular and that he's like the greatest quarterback ever. Like, he clearly has plenty of pitfalls. Like, accuracy is really bad right now. And honestly, decision making, especially go back to the Tampa Bay game in the playoffs, like, it wasn't good. You know, that you go back and watch the film and it's like, geez, Quez Watkins is wide open over here, missed throw this way to Dallas Goedert. You know, so he's not perfect, but I just see like a lot of hidden gems with him and a lot of stuff that can really come to the surface. I think he eventually can be really, really good. And we forget how bad some of these young quarterbacks were early. Like, Josh Allen wasn't good early on. You know, I was watching, I don't know who I was watching today, and they mentioned Josh Allen was terrible in his first playoff game. And I went back and watched the film, and it's like, oh, yeah, he was terrible in his first playoff game. So there are a lot of pitfalls with Jalen Hurts. There's a lot that he needs to improve on. And I think this is it in terms of the year. Like, if he stinks this year, if they miss the playoffs and he's bad, he's done, and they're going to move on. And that's fine by me. But what I've always told the people listening to my show is that, would you rather have Jalen Hurts plus, I guess, 2 first-round draft picks now, but it was 3 first-round draft picks? Would you rather trade for somebody? And the new name is Kyler Murray out there right now. And it's like, give me Jalen Hurts and 2 first-round draft picks and 2 next year, and like, just get some talent around him. The guy won 9 games. So yeah. I get that people think he's not that great, because there are times and it's like, again, geez, Jalen, what are we looking at here? But he's a fine option, and he's the quarterback I like for Philadelphia.
Thomas, you mentioned accuracy and decision-making as his 2 sort of pitfalls right now, and I think Raichele and I would totally agree with you there. Which do you think he has a better shot at improving upon for the next season?
I think it's decision-making. I think, I don't know. I think very rarely quarterbacks get like way more accurate, and he wasn't that bad. It's not like he's in the 55%. That's like 61 or something like that. It's not 65, you know, but I think decision-making, and I think it's just getting off of your first read. And that's a rookie quarterback thing, a young quarterback thing. It's like, okay, here's the play call. We're going in this direction. I need to get the ball out this fast against this defense to this player. Whereas the good quarterbacks see things at the line that he currently doesn't see yet. And he, you know, during the play, make decisions on the fly that I think that he struggles to do at sometimes. So, and again, this is the year where he can improve on that. And apparently he's been in California working with, is it Tom House or something like that? That quarterback coach has worked with everybody. So he's trying, he's putting in the work, but we're going to find out if he's one of the guys that can figure out how to quarterback properly in the NFL, or if he can't figure it out. And it happens all the time. Like, they can't figure it out. You're out of here. You're done, and move on. So this is the year, but I think decision-making, not missing guys on this side of the field who are wide open when he's looking over here, that's the thing that drives all of us nuts. It's like, okay, there's a touchdown right here. Just wait a second, or come back to the second read, or whatever it is. And that's what infuriates most anti-Jalen Hurts people. And listen, it infuriates me too.
Yeah, and Thomas, one of the things that Nick Sirianni told us at the Combine was sort of, you know, the importance of that second year in the same system. And this is going to be something that could lead to improved play from Hurts. Do you share that opinion that now that Hurts is finally, because, you know, Alabama, and then Oklahoma, and then Doug Peterson, now he's finally got year 2 in the same system. Do you think that's going to help his decision-making?
It should. And I think Sirianni didn't get enough grief for what he put Hurts through early on in the season. And I know Nick Sirianni guy as well in the same way. It's like young offensive-minded head coach. Year 2, he should be much better. Those first 6 games, it was like, Jalen, be our superhero quarterback and like throw the football over the field and like be the field general. And it was like, okay, well, he's not ready to do that yet. And once they realized, oh, wait, if we use his legs, we implement some read option, we start running the football ourselves and loading boxes and giving Devontae Smith one-on-ones, he can start to do some really good things. And I go back to the Denver tape is one of my favorite tapes to put on for him. He's fantastic in that game. He was really, Devontae Smith was great too. But I think that year 2 in Sirianni's system, and with Sirianni understanding what he has in Jalen Hurts and really building the offense around him to be successful, is going to be a huge thing for Jalen Hurts. Because again, it's so weird in the NFL that it takes so long for some of these coaches to like figure it out. But coaches come in and want to implement their own offensive systems, and it's like your quarterback's not built to do that. And the guys who stay in the longest are the guys that can bring in a quarterback and build them along in what they want them, or what they're able to do best, and what their strengths and weaknesses are. And so I think Sirianni figured that out late in the season. But it's like, let's just see what happens when he knows it all off season long and for 17 games. So yeah, I really think so.
Let's zoom out just a little bit. If you're ranking him among the other quarterbacks in the division, where would you say he falls?
I think he's second right now. Although Carson Wentz did not have as bad of a season in Indianapolis as we're making it out to be. He was still Carson Wentz and did all the things that infuriate us in Philadelphia, and especially the Jacksonville game was like a full, everything wrong with Carson Wentz piled in one game. But I think Wentz can be successful. I don't know if he's ever going to be 2017 successful, but Dak is one, and obviously we're not Cowboy fans, but Dak's still really good. Although Dak is not, $43 million worth in terms of a quarterback. Like, that's just something that Cowboy fans really thought he was, and the ankle got broken, and then last year he wasn't. So it's like, okay, he's fine, but he's not a top 5 or 8 quarterback in the league. I'd put Wentz 2 right now, just because he is a little bit better thrower of the football in terms of what Jalen Hurts is able to do. Hurts 3, Daniel Jones 4, but the whole division, I mean, with Dak taking a step back, it's all very mediocre quarterbacks. Like, this idea that Brian Daboll is going to fix Daniel Jones, to me, is still yet to be seen. I don't see that happening. I think Daniel Jones is what we've seen him to be. Maybe Ron Rivera can fix Carson Wentz, but I think right now, if you have Carson Wentz as your quarterback, you're really just trying to minimize what he does badly and just trying to like hide all of his flaws as best as possible, because he can win games too. And there were some Colts games last year he was really, really good. But I think Hurts is 2 right now. I mean, Hurts could easily be 1 at the end of next year too, because Dak's, again, just not that special. So I'll go Dak, Wentz, just from experience for Carson Wentz. I'm not a Wentz hater like a lot of Eagle fans are. Hurts, and then we'll go with Daniel Jones.
Thomas, did it surprise you to see Washington trade for Wentz? I agree with you that like Wentz didn't have as bad a season as it made it out to be. I think that Jacksonville game kind of recency bias clouded everybody's mind. Yeah. Did it surprise you to see a team sitting at 11th in the draft, give up 2 picks, one that can become a second, and take on his whole salary?
Yeah, there are 2 ways to look at that, because I think, and we're going to talk about, I'm sure, draft quarterbacks in a little bit, everyone knows that this is a terrible class. And I think teams and GMs have done their draft due diligence, and some of them are very much in. Like Pittsburgh, I think, is very much in on taking a quarterback. And there are some, I think Seattle is as well. And there are some, I think, like Washington, who went, like, I don't want to touch Malik Willis and make him start in year 1. So I'm most shocked about that it wasn't Jimmy Garoppolo. I think Garoppolo was the most smart trade you could have done from a quarterback perspective if you needed one this offseason. And Pittsburgh as well. I don't know why Pittsburgh didn't do that. Like, Jimmy Garoppolo just wins games, and he's not that bad. He still makes – I mean, the problem that we have, and I'm going a bunch of different ways here, is that everybody wants their quarterback to be Josh Allen. Like, that's the expectation. Like, why isn't my guy Josh Allen? And because you watch him battle it out with Patrick Mahomes in that playoff game, and it's like, why can't my guy do that? And they're so fixated on trying to make sure that they get Josh Allen that they're passing up on guys who can win you games. And I thought that Jimmy Garoppolo at this point would have been traded, but I guess he hasn't been. I think the same goes for Carson Wentz. They see that Carson Wentz did have potential to be Josh Allen, because he basically was in 2017. He was great. He was at that caliber of a level. And I think the expectation is there, well, I can just fix him. Like, I can get him in here in my, new commander system. I'm Ron Rivera, whoever it is, in terms of making those calls, and we can get back to 2017. And that was the thought process with Frank Reich and with the Colts, is they thought we can do it again, and they realized that they couldn't. It's just a matter of time for how many more chances does the guy get, because he clearly couldn't get back to that point, right? So, and maybe 2017 was just a straight outlier season. Like, I was so bought into Carson Wentz. I was like, we have literally found the next great quarterback. We're going to have I mean, next 10 years, we're going to win multiple Super Bowls with this guy. I was all in. And I was all in 2018. I blamed a lot of what Doug Peterson did and the pieces around him and all the injuries. And then after that, his final year, it was like, okay, wait, maybe he's never going to be 2017 again. So I get what they're trying to do in Washington, and Washington's going to be a pretty good football team. They have good defense. They have weapons on the outside. But I think we're just all trying to chase the next Josh Allen, and he's not going to be Josh Allen. So I don't know. We'll see.
You mentioned Garoppolo, and I kind of wanted to go here for a second because Carolina's sitting at 6. They're now the team that's linked with Garoppolo.
Yeah.
And obviously, if they don't do that trade, then that's a potential spot for a quarterback, which could push a very good player down into Philadelphia's laps when they have those 2 picks. And so do you think a Garoppolo trade gets done before the draft, or do you think that's a spot where you might see a quarterback come off the board?
There's got to be something that's keeping Garoppolo from being traded. The asking price is way too high because I think we heard a couple of second-round draft picks or whatever.
Right.
I think the 49ers are wanting too much because it just doesn't make sense why he's still there, because the report this morning that I read is that they've told Trey Lance he's quarterback 1, and so why are you paying Garoppolo $25+ million, whatever it is? That to me would make the most sense. And I went to Baylor. I was with Matt Rule when he was there. I covered the team. I'm a huge Matt Rule guy, and I've been shocked how bad he's been in Carolina. If I'm Matt Rule, like, is Kenny Pickett saving my job? Like, how many games am I winning with Kenny Pickett? So I would trade for Jimmy Garoppolo. I still, is it going to cost a 6th overall draft pick? It shouldn't, in my opinion, but maybe that's why Garoppolo hasn't been moved. Maybe they're just too stingy about it because they obviously love Trey Lance. So I do think that is where your first quarterback goes. I saw a mock draft that had Malik Willis going like 2 overall or something like that. I think Carolina, either someone trades up to take Willis or Pickett, or Carolina stays put. But I don't see anybody else going ahead of him. But again, if I'm Carolina, Garoppolo with Christian McCaffrey, and they've worked on the offensive line, and they have some weapons on the outside, like, you could do a lot worse in the NFC South.
All right, so let's get into the QB class. I know you said that you're not a fan of it. And so far, looking at the pre-draft visits that the Eagles have done so far, they've only had one quarterback, Matt Corral. What are your thoughts on him, and how upset would you really be? I don't think this is going to happen. I think we know this is not going to happen if they took him as early as in the first round.
Yeah, I mentioned earlier it's a bad quarterback class. It's not a great quarterback class, but one of the 4, like Ritter, I guess 5 with Howell, Ritter, Corral, Willis, Pickett, one of them is going to be good. Like, it's just statistically impossible that all 5 of them are going to stink. The question is which one. I'm trending higher on Matt Corral than I was at the beginning of the whole draft process because these guys go up and down boards, and it's funny to watch mock drafts happen. You guys watch it too. I'm a Kenny Pickett 1 just because he's the most pro-ready, and if you want to get a guy in to maybe win games, then I'll go Corral 2. The Malik Willis hype to me is insanely overblown because, again, they think he's Josh Allen. Like, that's kind of what no one will say it out loud on like ESPN or whatever, but that's generally like big, strong arm, mobility, comes from a small school, didn't have a ton of success, like, at Wyoming or whatever, Liberty. That's the hope with Malik Willis. I just don't see it. And it scares me that a team is going to take him in the first round and probably at the top 15 and have to go ahead and immediately start him. I like Corral as quarterback number 2. And there was an article I was reading about him months ago that a bunch of people in college football said this is the best player in college football that no one talks about. Like, he has had a lot of success at Ole Miss. And we think back to the Alabama game, and he really struggled in the Alabama game. And it's like, well, there's your NFL defense against Matt Corral. He must stink. But you put the rest of Corral's film on, he has mobility. He has the right size. He seems to have the right head on his shoulders. He has that kind of chip on his shoulder, too, that you saw Jalen Hurts have whenever he came out. I'm a big Corral fan for anybody but Philadelphia. And I think it's very, very clear that the Eagles can't take a quarterback in the first round. And the Corral visit is interesting because on one hand, it's like you only have 30 visits. So why are you bringing him in unless you actually like him? The other hand, it's like, there's got to be smoke somewhere. And you got to figure people are going to be calling and trying to make deals and trying to move up and down the draft. And so that's my hope, is that it's just simply hey, we're interested, wink, wink, come and get our pick if you actually want it. Because Howie's going to go nuts in this draft. I think he's going to trade up and down like crazy. So I would definitely see it being more of a smokescreen than actually a real thing. If they were to take him, I'd have the same feeling that I had draft night when they drafted Jalen Hurts, because back then I was a Carson Wentz purist, and I was all in on Carson Wentz. And in the second round, they took Jalen Hurts, and I was like, what are we doing? This is the dumbest move of all time. And I've learned that it actually made sense. Although I think back whenever it happened, they weren't envisioning having to trade Carson Wentz. Like, he was genuinely trying to do the quarterback factory thing. So I really hope it doesn't happen again. But they love these quarterbacks, and it's so weird. But he loves having multiple guys. And right now, I mean, I guess he does have what's his face as the backup. They haven't traded him yet. I'm blanking on his name.
Gardner Minshew.
Minshew, yeah, but behind Minshew, there's not much there, and so you could see how he's spinning that as, oh well, we're a quarterback factory, and it's like, please don't, just don't.
Thomas, do you think there's potentially a research project with the Corral visit? Because one of the things that Corral said at the combine was that a lot of NFL teams are asking him about how Mississippi dealt with drop 8 coverage. And we saw, what the Cincinnati Bengals did to the Chiefs in the AFC Championship game with drop 8. I've got this feeling that that's going to be the next thing. We had the too high revolution the past couple of years. Now we might see drop 8 because of what it did to the Kansas City Chiefs. Do you think that they had them in partly to talk about that, to get an idea of what might work against these coverages if they see them next year?
Yeah, I mean, it totally could be. And he's one of the guys that you could really kind of pick his brain on doing that. There's so much showmanship and gamemanship going on right now. And again, everyone's so scared of all these young quarterbacks. They're going to rip you apart like Justin Herbert and Allen and Mahomes, stuff like that. So I think that can make sense. But I think Howie can't help himself. And I think that if it's not a smokescreen and he's genuinely interested in these guys, it's Howie trying to be like, let's just make sure this isn't, and again, I keep saying it, Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes. Like, let's just make sure, because what if we bring him in and he is, and I genuinely believe that he is, if Howie Roseman's speaking here, we can at least do our due diligence, say that we tried him out and stuff like that. So it's one of the two, and that's the beauty of draft season. It's like, I have no idea. I really don't. But I'll be so shocked if in the first round it's a quarterback. Round 2, 3, 4 wouldn't surprise me because it's Howie, but first round it would blow my mind.
Would you say that there are any quarterbacks who are maybe being underrated so far based off of what we've been hearing in the media?
Sam Howell is getting a lot of disrespect right now, and I'm not a Sam Howell guy, but that was like your number one quarterback in this class pre Spencer Rattler sucking at Oklahoma. So Howell, he's drifted a lot. I don't know if it's due to the fact the ACC was terrible this year, or if he just, obviously if you put the film on, he's not crazy special, but he's no longer a first round guy. Although I saw a new mock draft, because there's one every day these days, that had him going inside the top 25. So you never know. I think getting 4 quarterbacks in the first round, it's a question of is Ritter going in the first round or is Howell going in the first round? And right now it feels like Ritter is going to be the first rounder because of the mobility. And so I think Howell's getting disrespected a little bit, but Howell can be in a really good spot if he doesn't go in the first round, because you can have somebody trade back up in the second round and take him at like 38 overall and he goes to a better situation. It's like, where do you really want to go in terms of, being a rookie quarterback? Because we've learned with Sam Darnold, it matters wherever you end up, and a lot of other guys before it. So I think Howell overall has been the most disrespected. I think everyone else has just been overrated too. I think there's not a lot of disrespect going on right now. I think it's like, these guys are great. Look how fantastic these guys are. Maybe a top 5 pick. And any other year, all of them except for, I guess, Kenny Pickett would be a second round pick at best.
You mentioned the idea, Thomas, of, they probably don't draft quarterback in the first round, but maybe we get into day 2, maybe early day 3, they decide, all right, now we're going to draft a quarterback to bring in, take a look at. As we get into, say, that third round comp pick at 101 or the fourth rounder at 124, is there a quarterback, say, in the later rounds, do you think this guy might have something to him, and maybe in Philadelphia it might work for him in their offense?
Yeah, I've gotten that question a lot too, because people are like trying to find the next, backup to go ahead and kind of mimic Jalen Hurts. Akil Glass out of Alabama A&M. I don't know if he's going to get drafted, but he's one of those like late guys that you could see with their 7th round draft pick or their 6th round draft pick. The one quarterback I just don't know what you're getting out of him is Carson Strong. Like, I feel like he is just an absolute mystery. They never talk about him on national media. You don't see him mocked almost most mock drafts are 2 rounds. He doesn't go in the first 2 rounds. And so you don't get to hear about him, read about him. You got to put the tape on yourself. Is he a 2nd round guy? Is he a 4th round guy? I don't really know, but he wouldn't surprise me if he was a pick, just simply from the fact that Howie, again, wants his quarterback class. And here's a guy who is not Akil Glass at Alabama A&M, who, played against nobodies and is someone no one actually knows. Here's a guy that you actually would recognize with your names for the namesake. He's played at a legit school at Nevada. And so I could see him being a 3rd or 4th round guy that Howie brings in and says, hey, we're just going to see what happens. And he turns into the Nate Sudfeld kind of situation for so long, because Sudfeld always felt like a really good backup. He just never, ever saw the field. And I think you could see something similar with that with Carson Strong. But I do think Howie's going to take a quarterback in this draft. I just am praying it's after round 4. That way we don't waste picks on needless positions, especially if Gardner's still on the roster, which still blows my mind.
Right. Do you think with Strawn, it's the medical history, Thomas? It's just teams are so wary of that knee injury, and they're telling people in the media, like, look, we're scared off by this. That's why he's sort of fallen under the radar.
It probably is. And again, it's Nevada. And I genuinely think, even though I know that teams aren't this dumb, but who they talk about on ESPN and Fox Sports and stuff are the people are the names that fans start to understand. And that plays a tiny little role in who you draft as your quarterback. Because if you're a quarterback needy team and you miss out on the names that you hear every single day, like we didn't get Malik Willis, we didn't get, Desmond Ridder, we got Carson Strong. Ooh, I don't really like that. Who's that guy? I didn't watch any Nevada games this year. It's 1% of the draft process, but I do think it is part of the whole, persona of he's our guy of the future. But if you haven't heard of him, then it's like, okay, well, is he really our guy of the future? So adding the injury and then paired with the fact that no one talks about him is the reason he's going to be, fourth round or something like that.
In the past, me and Mark have talked about how like the game is literally changing before our eyes and mobility matters. It's so important. How important would you say, looking at like this draft class as an example, it is when looking at like your franchise quarterback?
Mobility is so weird because we talk about it all the time, right? And I've always said that I'm not a big Lamar Jackson guy because he's too mobile, and that's kind of the rip right now on Kyler Murray. Although I think Kyler throws the football very, very well, and you can still win with Lamar Jackson. I think they'll make it easy, go to the Super Bowl with Lamar Jackson. But the perfect mix of mobility right now, and I'm going to beat this name to the ground, is Josh Allen, because you have everything you want in a pocket passer, and he's a pure pocket passer by all intents and purposes, and then he gashes you for 30 yards. And that's what I think Jalen Hurts can really start to do in 2022. I think that Hurts can really be that sort of quarterback because he is extremely mobile, and they run a lot of quarterback, power and read option with him, and they try to get him on the edge. But in the end, he still is a very good is the right word, but he still is a pocket passer. He's a pocket passer with mobility, and that's what I want in my quarterbacks. I think that's the beauty of the majority of the guys in this class and the way you can spin liking them if your team takes them. Like Matt Corral, he has the same thing. Nice arm, mobility. Malik Willis, really good arm, and decent mobility. Desmond Ridder, I think he's going to jump in the first round due to the fact that he's mobile. I think it's important, but you also go through, the last four quarterbacks standing each of the past couple of years, and it's all pocket guys first who might have a little bit of mobility. Because, Mahomes is a pocket guy, but he also can scramble for 15 yards out of the blue and really, surprise you on a 3rd down and 7. So I think that you've got to be pocket first. You've got to win from the pocket. It's the same thing we always say. You have to be Tom Brady from the pocket. But at the same time, the young guys now have a little bit of mobility, and that definitely is a huge plus whenever you have something break down on a 3rd down 4 or 3rd down and 5. So again, I think Howell's rip is that he's not mobile. And of course, not super successful this past year inside the ACC. And I think that's the one thing that would really turn me off from Pickett. It's like, you're not getting any mobility with Kenny Pickett. You're getting a straight statue. And so it's like, he's got to be really good or else he's going to get, beat up and throw a bunch of picks and get sacked a bunch. So that's the draw right now to the other three of Corral, Ridder, and Willis, is being able to have a little bit of mobility mixed in there because I think it's super important.
Let's sort of take quarterback and put it to the side because I think we're all sort of in agreement. It's not in play for the first round. So those picks at 15 and 18, Thomas, are there positions you've got in mind? Are there players you've got in mind? Like, what would you be, waking up Friday morning over the moon with if the Eagles did on that Thursday night?
Yeah, it's a mixture. I think your 2nd round draft pick comes into play here because you really need a linebacker, a wide receiver, a corner, and a defensive end. Those are your 4 needs. Defensive end, not as much anymore because I love Hassan Reddick, and then Josh Sweat's going to be good. And I think Brandon Graham will be just fine, although not nearly as good as he once was pre-injury. But you're set there, but you can always have more, and Howie always takes defensive linemen. So it wouldn't shock me if they were to take a lineman at 15 or 18. Although now with the Ajabo, you can just wait till late round 1, early round 2 and just grab him there. Yeah. I love that. So it really comes down to cornerback, wide receiver, and linebacker. You can mix safety in there too, but let's just assume they're going to stay at 15. Kyle Hamilton's not there, so you just get safety out of your mind immediately. For me, it's a wide receiver. I think you got to get one, and then really it's take your pick on linebacker or corner. But whatever you don't get, you must get in round 2. Like they still have to get a linebacker, and so if you don't get Nakobe Dean or Devin Lloyd, then Chad Muma out of Wyoming in round 2, it's like you have to do it. If you don't get a cornerback, if Stingley doesn't fall, if you don't like McDuffie or Andre Booth, then you got to get somebody in round 2. Like right now, they don't have a second corner. And this whole Zach McPherson is going to start thing, which they tried to pitch us at the owners meeting. It was like, oh, we really like our 4 young guys. It was like, do you? Because you keep trying to go sign all these cornerbacks and you keep failing at it. So I think wide receiver for sure, and then it's your pick of cornerback or linebacker. I'm a huge Devin Lloyd fan. I'm like so sick of having bad linebacker play. And TJ Edwards played well at times later in the year, and Davion Taylor, I think, is really exciting on the outside. But like, can we get an actual linebacker, like a legit middle linebacker who's going to start every single snap unless you're in quarters coverage, and who can actually, fill holes and be a leader of the defense? Like, they just haven't had that. Like, Jeremiah Trotter was the last time we had that, and I was like 5 years old. It's been forever. So I think take your pick of the wide receivers. We can talk about them. I have no preference on any of the top four, like right now, in terms of London, Olave, Wilson, Jameson Williams. You can throw in Treylon Burks there at number 5. Like, I have no preference there. Pick one, because I think that they're all fantastic. I'm leaning towards Olave right now because he can be in the slot and run really good routes, and he's crazy fast. But I do think whatever you don't do in terms of corner or linebacker, you got to come back around and take in round 2. If they don't take a linebacker in the first 4 rounds, I beat my head against like a freaking wall, because it just doesn't make sense. Like, you got to get a linebacker in this draft. But at the same time, it's a long-winded answer. Howie always takes defensive linemen. So when he takes a defensive lineman and Tyler Linderbaum at 15 and 18, and we all start freaking out, I'm just going to sit back and say, like, this is a Howie draft, except what Howie does.
So Thomas, you're basically expecting Jordan Davis at 15 and Tyler Linderbaum at 18.
Literally, yeah, it would not surprise me at all.
Yeah,
and I like Jordan Davis, but at 15, it's like, geez, do we really did Milt Williams mean nothing last year? Do we need another one in there? So yeah.
I wanted to pick your brain about this corner group, because I think it's really talented. Obviously, you mentioned some of the guys at the top: Gardner, Stingley. You've got Booth, you've got McDuffie, you've got McCreary, you got Elam. Is there a guy you'd like to see in Philly out of that group, or is there somebody else you have in mind?
Yeah, I was not a McDuffie fan for like a while. Like, he was mocked early in like a very early Todd McShay mock draft, and I was like, what is this guy? I didn't watch any Washington games last year. Like, I wanted a Gardner or Stingley like everybody else, but Gardner for sure will not be there. And Stingley's falling, but he's not falling to 15. So McDuffie to me is the leader in the clubhouse right now, because I think just overall he's a freak of an athlete. You put the film on, it's like, this guy's great. He can tackle really well. I can see McDuffie at 15. Andre Booth is, to me, my second is the next guy up there. 15 just feels like a stretch. Like, if I was at 20 and I took Andre Booth, it's like, okay, that's fine. 15 though, it still feels like you're in that elite talent hunting draft slot. Like, as soon as you get past 15, it's like, well, maybe they'll be good, but maybe they won't. But like, 15 needs to be a guy who's ready to rock day one, like instant success. So I'm a McDuffie guy if you can't get Stingley or Gardner, and then I think Andre Booth. But again, if it's between Andre Booth or Andrew, is it Andre or Andrew? I'm butchering that. It's Booth.
Andrew. I do it all the time too. No worries.
Andrew Booth out of Clemson. Between him and Devin Lloyd at 15, and McDuffie's off the board already, I'll take Devin Lloyd over him any day of the week.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for your time. We really, really appreciate having you. It's been amazing. Do you have any plugs, any last things you want to throw out there?
Yeah, I mean, listen, you always find me at the channel, Philadelphia Eagles Now on Twitter at Real Thomas Mott. We're gonna do a lot of draft coverage at Chat Sports as we lead into that, as I'm sure that you guys are as well. And I'm just gonna say it's gonna be a wild next 2 weeks. I mean, I think this is gonna be nuts. I think Howie's gonna go insane. It would not shock me if we're trading up, if we're trading down. I think the second and third round, he's going to go up and down that board and going to get his guys, which all the power to him. So it's going to be fun. I'm excited. I appreciate you guys having me on.
Thank you so much.
Tom.
Yes.